The one thing I've learned working in a treatment program and in treatment myself is that if you're willing to put in the work, it works. Right? What's that old expression at the end?
It works if you work it.
It works if you work it. We used to say that at the end of all my treatment meetings. And we have a really fine example of somebody who works very hard and has succeeded and is in recovery. So we want to welcome you to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm Randall Carlisle, my co-host Nicole Slack, and our guest today is Tyson Allred. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Now, see, you're already pushing your enterprise already. See,
Yeah.
with that, that's
I've been running around all day, so I got to rip the logo.
It's no coincidence that you wore that to the podcast. Yeah. Okay. So we met, Matt and I, Matt, who's behind the camera, sorry about that, met Tyson 6 years ago when you were in charge of a work program at Odyssey House called Pivot, which stood for what? Private?
I just don't even remember.
Something. Anyway, it was a program where people who were succeeding in the Odyssey program got
Private
to work.
industrial vocational training.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, sorry.
Private industrial vocation. Okay.
Yeah.
And so they had jobs at the same time they were going through residential treatment at Odyssey House. And the whole program ended with COVID and it's not resumed. So
It's not.
So anyway, you're a man in long-term recovery.
Sure.
But what, 9 years?
Yeah, this July will be 9 years.
Not that anyone's counting.
Yeah, no,
Right. So what was your drug of choice and how'd you recover? You didn't go through Odyssey.
I did not. No, it was Odyssey House was essential kind of in my recovery though, my behaviors and stuff. But my DOC was opiates, was Oxycontin, some back injury, But I'd always my mom was in active addiction. My dad was shot when I was like 4 years old, which kind of
Shot?
Yeah, by a guy who worked for us out in the orchards. And so my mom was young and kind of went into addiction. I hated drugs for most of my life. Got into sports and stuff, but it's like most of us, it's a social thing around, high school. It starts to be fun. And, I was never going to be any of that, and I could take it or leave it kind of until the Oxycontins. And then I was off and running and I always had a prescription of them. So it just kind of spiraled. I bought my first house when I was 18. So I was able to do a lot of stuff like, willpower they talk about, right? Why can't I just will myself out of this addiction? So that was a baffling thing for a long time. Like, why can't I figure this thing out? But like most of us, right, there's a line that crosses where it stops being fun. But I keep trying to recapture those old moments of like,
Never happened.
Yeah, if I could just, find the right mixture of whatever, I'd be okay, So I think that's like the great obsession they talk about, right?
Sure.
We try to do it like normal people, but for me, and then it started into legal issues. I've spent 9 years of my life incarcerated, twice in federal prison, about 17 years straight on probation. So yeah, I got all the qualifications that a man
in recovery who had a rugged life. Did you have to switch to heroin when you couldn't?
I always had a prescription. So I'd do that when the prescription ran out sometimes, but it wasn't ever a constant thing. I had a lot of friends, I've never used a needle, which I just knew I'd probably like it too much and wouldn't get back from that. So it wasn't like a moral thing. It was more of that's going to be a bad road. So, but yeah, and then Xanax, I have 7 DUIs and none of them are for alcohol. So that's, I had standards. I'm not going to drink and drive, but I'll take Oxycontins and drive. Right?
Well, that was me drinking and driving. So I'd say I'm better than you because I wasn't using the hard drugs.
Yeah, right.
See?
Exactly. It's all bottom in comparison, So.
So, but have you always been a hard worker? I mean, I'm impressed. And we'll get into what you're doing now, but I was impressed back when you were doing the Pivot program and everything else.
Yeah, like I worked on a farm. My grandpa had orchards and stuff in Payson, and when you're tying trees for miles of trees, you just learn to just work, So, and my grandpa was a vet, so my other grandpa was a vet, so I worked with cats and dogs, and yeah, I think I've always worked. It was an ethic that was kind of
even in your days of addiction, because I mean, oxys are a downer.
Yeah.
So,
but that was my comparison, right? Because they'll give you an upswing and then a downswing. So it was, for me, it was, this is prescribed. It's okay. And you know what I mean? Like, my drug dealer's a doctor. It's great, you know? So but I was still selling pills and doing all the same stuff. You know, it was a lifestyle too, but yeah, I've always worked and I always had a job, which comparing bottoms, right? Like, I'm not going to be homeless. And that's what I mean by that willpower in all other areas of my life. I was able to figure it out. And this thing always kept, I'd be in jail and be like, why am I here? It's like, I don't belong here. It's like, really? Then why do you keep coming back? You know, like we have done. And so it was that delusion of I'm uniquely different. And yeah, it was a road for a long time. And finally it was, you know, my 7th DUI. It was July 23rd, 2016. I was on my 7th one and I was just like, well, what haven't I tried? Because I'd been to federal prison. I'd done the RDAP program. I've done, you know, I went to treatment, petted horses and had a cook and got zenful and mindful. And, you know, but it was always like, I'm just going to do this long enough to get, you know, the law off my back or, you know, and then I can do whatever I want later. And it wasn't ever like a desire to like, okay. And, you know, it was, but it wasn't. I guess that willingness just would fade away. The insane idea would win out and I'd talk myself into it, justify it. And it was.
People don't understand that in the midst of addiction, your mind is not working the right way. Yeah. You're looking at the world in a different way than you do when you're sober.
Yeah. And even when you're sober, the insane ideas that come, right? Like we're just wired different. And like to figure that out, like I'm insane when I'm high and drunk, but I'm insane when I'm sober. Like I think some crazy thoughts and I'm like, oh, but I have like coping skills. And that's the program and the steps that I've done was set me up for like, I love it because it's like the analogy of the tree, right? It's dying. We take it out of the hole. We wash the roots off. That's what treatment is for me. We get it healthy. We feed it, but then we put it back in the same hole and wonder why it dies again. Like that made sense to me. So I'd never change my lifestyle, my surroundings or my people or my belief system or what principles I was living by. Like none of that mattered. And so like to actually be in recovery is like a new whole. It's a new group of people, a new lifestyle, a new ethic by living a code, right? Designed for living like that we live by now that I didn't think mattered in the scheme of things when I'm in that addict mindset, you know? So those things allow you to be like, you know, we practice these principles because it was a monopoly on staying sober. Like I do these things and that's kind of what the change was for me. It's like, okay, what haven't I tried, you know? And it was like, and I was sitting in jail.
Sobriety.
Yeah. And I was like, finally, it's like, I'm going to actually do this and be honest and give my full heart to it and see what happens.
Is that what flipped the switch for you?
It was funny. I went to court and I shouldn't have got out. I mean, I'm 7 DUIs. What if I killed a kid? You know, like I could imagine putting that judge in that predicament. Like, you know, because we always want, oh, here's my papers I did in jail. I'm doing really well, you know. And so I was just honest with him. I'm like, you probably shouldn't let me out. Like, and I understand that.
You said that to the judge?
Yeah, it was the first time I was really honest with him. And he sat me down and I'm like, no matter what you do today, this is what I'm going to do. And sat me down, he's even asking people in the hallway, is there anyone else? And I'm like, what's going on here? And he calls me back. He's like, I'm not going to sentence you today. I'm going to send you to treatment. And what you do in treatment is going to constitute what I do. And I was just grateful. That's all I wanted was a shot, you know, just an opportunity. And it's like, I've had plenty, but this time I just want a shot. And that's what I got. And I was so grateful and humbled and appreciative. And then about a week in, the entitlement and everything comes back. So then I was like, what happened? What switched? And I started to look at like my behaviors and like what's going on with this addictness in me to where I'm trying to justify and minimize and all the things we do. And it was an eye opener because I mean, last week I was on fire, you know, and then this week I'm mad that they're serving chicken again, you know.
Well,
so
I think that it's normal to go back to old habits. It's easier, even if it's wrong, to do what you know.
Yeah.
And I think recovery is discomfort. You're so uncomfortable trying new things, new groups of people, new habits.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable.
And that I've heard a saying that like it's the repetitiveness that kills us, right? It's not going to work this time. It's not, but if you look at it, that's what we did with our addiction. That repeat behavior. This happens, I do this. This happens, I do this. Right. But in recovery, it's like this happens, I do this. You know, you got to change that coping skill, that belief system. Like we rewire ourselves by that repetitiveness. And every time I think it's not going to work this time. This is not. And when I do it, I see these results and I was like, it's,
Right.
and that's what I think that changing your coping skills, changing your lifestyle and your tribe of people, I got a tribe of guys that I call and I bounce ideas off of that, hold me accountable, that tell me the truth. I don't need cosigners or the people who say, well, yep, whose car are we taking? Like, no, I don't need to call that guy. But
And what you bring up really raises the issue of how long somebody should be or should work on recovery and in their treatment program. And I'm of the firm belief, because I was a functional alcoholic for decades, that you can't turn long-term behavior, making those decisions that you just described, in 30 days.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
It is. And that's what treatment can't keep you sober. But what happens, I think, is it clears your head. It gets rid of the distractions enough to where now I have a conscious choice, right? What am I going to do with the rest of this time, right? Or I just believe like, hey, I punched my ticket, 30 days, I'm done, and you're going to get what you get. But recovery is a lifetime process. And
Yep.
the more I'm in it, the more beautiful this journey really is, like all the things that I thought were detrimental. And it's like, man, I'm so grateful for those trials and those moments and those struggles, because it builds this confidence that like, I can do that. What else can I do? What else can I do? And that was me. It was this whole idea, like, I can't go to school. I went to school. I get 4.0s. Okay, I can do that. I can run a program. And so it was, I think, doing those actions and meeting those goals and instills this confidence that it's like, okay, that's possible too. I am not, because, I always have these thoughts. I am an addict. I am a convict. I'll never, always those finalized statements that, that's not true either, So it's like, what can I do now? And that's the switch I think that needs to change is, setting these goals, achieving them. Okay, well, what's next? Because normally it's like 30 days, I'm just going to rest on that. I'm good. And that's not how we don't rest on your laurels. It's what's next, and that's kind of how I live my life. Like, what else can I do? And it's paid dividends.
I started out this podcast talking about the fact that you have to put in hard work, and you have put in hard work, and I've been. You are on Facebook, so I see some pictures of everything that you've accomplished. Tell us, since you left. The Pivot program, Odyssey House, what all you've done to your life.
Yeah, so I
first and foremost, you got married, didn't you?
I did get married. I lost my ring. It's plastic. So I got my original, but I lost the silicone.
She's watching.
Yeah, I know she's already. Anyway, but yeah, I got married in June, but that was huge. I met this beautiful woman who I don't know.
She is beautiful.
Yeah, and I don't know why she puts up with me, but I'm grateful. And it's led to this thing. Like, I mean, we've been together 7 years, and we just got married. We went to the Dominican Republic, and it was awesome. But
they had all these romantic pictures on the beach with the sun setting and everything.
Yeah, it was the goal.
Tyson, you've made it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I all the goals that I've set, like, I've achieved, and now I'm starting to re-evolve. Like, what's the next 5-10 years look like? Which is crazy. Once you hit all those marks, and you're like, okay, what's next? It's a weird place to be in. So it's exciting too. But
professionally, what did you do?
So professionally, like, I wanted to run my own company, and I wanted to help addicts was my goal, because I seen, like, I just wanted this opportunity, and no one wanted to hire me. No one wanted to give me a shot, and I was an iron worker for most of my life, and so I could go back to that same environment, make good money, but it was, I had friends who told me, like, why don't you just try the recovery thing and build a foundation, and all that will come. And man, that's exactly what happened. I met all these connections. The director of Odyssey House gave me a shot at Odyssey House, and I started on graveyards. They opened the Mill Creek location, went into Pivot program, which Chris O was running, and he wanted out. And so it just evolved. And I went up to Wasatch Crest Recovery, and I opened their sober living house and kind of ran it the way I thought things were missing in other sober living houses. And then the whole time I'm going to school and figuring this out, and then the opportunity come, what I wanted to do was start my construction company. And it was terrifying. We went all in, and I jumped, and we got a contract with the company out of Crowley, Texas. We do a lot of commercial work. We travel around the country. We do local, like, high-end remodels, and I hire guys in recovery. And it's been amazing and tiresome and full of trials and beautiful, chaotic journey. And it's been amazing. And now it's so weird to sit back and like, I can't complain about my boss because it's
you are
me.
the boss.
So it's like, if he just run it different, but I mean, we've grown and it's exciting. And I hire guys in recovery because first I wanted a shot, and second, because if someone in recovery can find that fire inside them, like, they're unstoppable. You can do whatever you want to do. The problem is we get in our own way. Life happens, right? Circumstance happens, and we fall back to our old coping skills. But if you can push through that, like, some of the guys I got working for me they're brothers. They're so close to me. I trust them with everything, and like, I couldn't ask for better employees, And my business partner I actually met in treatment, so which is kind of a weird thing because most of those relationships don't work out, but he's my best friend. We're doing this together, and we have like-minded principles. So, when you feel like you're being sold a used car, I think everyone knows the universal language of truth, and that's just how we treat our customers. We just tell them, here's the fair price, here's what it is, and I think they know we're practicing integrity when we navigate with them, and so then word of mouth spreads, and here we are. And it's basically only because of the principles of recovery that all this is possible, which is...
Have you been rejected for jobs because people know that you're working, that your staff has people in recovery?
I've had more cases where I had a designer we worked for came out and just started crying because her son just passed from heroin and was just mothering all my guys and so happy that we were there, and she had no idea that he was even struggling. And I've had more cases like that to where we get to break stigma by showing who we are. Like, you can kind of read the room. Sometimes I don't lead with that, I mean, Clean Construction Contractors is my name. We do clean work. We do quality work. And also I hire guys who are clean in recovery. So it's kind of a double entendre is what we're going. But yeah, I've had more cases where people are like, wow, I didn't know, wow, that's really impressive. You guys are amazing. You're efficient. You're honest. And that's what I shoot for, is to break stigma and all these people that we run into. So, because I think, we see an addict, we want to, oh, you're an addict, and they hide their wallet or purse.
Yeah, right. I've seen some of your posts on social media about traveling around the country and doing pretty big construction projects. Are you ever tempted on the road? I mean, like, okay, you're done work for the day, you go out. Yeah. Are you tempted to party at all or not?
And that's the biggest thing. Like, the road life is hard for my guys. For me, it's weird. I work a pretty solid program, so that's like, there's no real thought of like, that's a solution, but it'll whisper in the wind sometimes, like, oh, beer would be nice, or this would be nice. Because, no one asks you, like, why don't you drink? Especially in other states, what? You don't drink? No one asks, what? You
I'm
don't
from
do
Utah.
Heroin? Yeah. What? No, you don't do heroin? It's like, no one asks that,
Yeah.
So that's kind of a weird thing. It's like, I break out in handcuffs when I drink, because I always start with alcohol. That's why I'm an alcoholic. I always start there. And then, I don't stay with it long enough because I'll go back to other stuff. But yeah, it's a different... And what's beautiful is there's always meetings everywhere on the road. And everywhere I go, there's the same group of people. It's my tribe of people, and I can go in. It's the same cliches on the wall, same stuff. And it's like, yep, and so it's just the same thought process, the same solution. It's the same, and it's the repetitiveness. It gets, over and over and over every day. I just got to watch where I'm at.
Everybody has seen the movie version of 12-step meeting.
Yeah.
Bunch of old guys
swinging light bulb,
dark room, and drinking really terrible black coffee and smoking up a storm. Yeah. And that's really not the way they are. Yeah. But they are. I do agree with you that they're basically the same format anywhere in the world. Yeah.
And it's the most proven modality to work, and I think that's because it is a different hole you're putting your roots into, right? It is a difference. And everything I've been able to do, like when I started my company, I got denied on my Doppel license. They told me no, and I'd already started the company.
Because of your criminal background?
Yeah, because of my past. And it was funny because I'm working with clients, and they'll allow me to be licensed to work in recovery, right? But they won't let me build a deck for a customer, which was insane. And they denied me. And so it was through recovery. I got introduced to a guy, a Joel Johnson. I don't know if you know him, but he's amazing. And he went to bat for me with the legislature, and I got to go in and break stigma and change the law and show. And it's like, what are we doing if this individual can't have a license? They put me in touch with the director of DOPL, which they ended up getting rid of the guy who denied me. And I'm distraught and depressed and like, poor me. And like, this is how like God's worked in my life, and these people and connections and this chessboard is navigated, where this lady called me and says, I feel you've been dealt an injustice and I want to remedy it. And without appeals, without any, they fixed it. The director of DOPL put my case on her file and said, I want you to review this guy's case. And, and like that stuff has happened 1,000 times over. And that's the beautiful thing about this, is like, you're up against the wall and you know, it's not going to work out this time. And then you put your shoes on, put your head down, and it works out.
Did you think of using in response to the fact that you couldn't get licensed?
No, it was more like just a depression. Like, is this ever going to go away? Like, my past is always going to fall. You know, like that dark cloud. And it was, you know, it was a real depression. I didn't want to get up. It's like, what's the point type, you know, mentality. But I did know, like, in my bones that drinking or using isn't going to fix anything. You know, like, if I stay sober today, there's a chance something good can happen. If I drink or use, there's no chance. You know, and like, I know that in my bones that there's no chance if I do that. So if I, you know, stay in it long enough, like, people come, miracles happen, connections work. And that's the beauty of this thing, is anything I've been wanting to do or anything I've had questions on, there's someone in recovery who's like, oh, I know how to do that. Or here's somebody I know, or here's some, you know, like when I was writing papers, I met Adam, sat down with him. He's more than willing to sit down and tell me how his business runs and how a nonprofit is functioning. Same thing in private industries, you know. And so I'm really fascinated with how the business model works. And Odyssey House in general it changed my life too, because I come at recovery a different way. And then working in Odyssey House was an eye-opener of how all these behaviors like pile into my decision-making, you know. And like with Cheryl, the director, she was my boss, and she'd call me out and she says, this isn't, how can you expect to like help people in recovery when you're doing this in your own life? That's not congruent with recovery. And all of those, it's like, I can't be a hypocrite. I can't tell someone to make their bed when my bed's looking like crap at home, you know? And like, how can I be a man of example, a man of integrity? And it's living a life like, you know, am I the same in the light as I am in the dark? You know, when no one's watching. And if I can live my life that way, then I'm good, you know? And I learned a lot of those behaviors, those thought processes from Odyssey and trying to run a program that I didn't come through, you know. It wasn't as ingrained in me as
I in AA meetings, I guess I'm allowed to say,
yeah, you never know.
12-step meeting. Okay. There was always somebody when it was time to share, and I was new to sobriety, and they'd get up and they'd say something to the effect of, ever since I quit using or drinking or whatever, good things started happening to me. And I'd sit there thinking, yeah, well, that's crap.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just something you say at a 12-step meeting. Mm-hmm. But I've got to say the same thing happened to me. And you just described good things happening.
Yeah.
You know, and what about you, Nicole? I mean, you're not as old sober as we are, but yeah.
All good things, and it was slow and over time. But now that I look back, I'm so fortunate that I went to Odyssey House. I'm fortunate that I ran into the house manager, and she told me about this job. I had just lost my job for having a DUI, and they let me know, like, we can't insure you, so you can't do this job anymore. And I was devastated. And then she's just like, you've shown integrity, and that there's this new position they're opening up. Do you want to apply? And now I have this dream job that I love. It's just all good things.
That's what's been my experience too, is people are watching and we don't even know they're watching.
Yeah.
And when we navigate those adversities, these opportunities come. It was the same with me. They see what you're doing and you don't even know. You're just trying to stay sober, you know, and figure it out and not make it worse. And in those adversities, like in hindsight, I look back and see how this chessboard has navigated my life and think, wow, that wasn't me. That was amazing. and it's the connections I have and the people who go to bat for me. And it's all because practicing these principles. I'm just trying to be a better man today. And people see that and they're like, no, you can trust him. When I started in Mill Creek and they give me like the balance sheet and credit cards and then I'm doing payroll. It's like, that imposter syndrome. Do you know who I am? Like,
You're letting me do that.
But that's when you're trusted with little, right? Then you can be trusted with much. It's people see what you do with those things. And then when people trust you, you don't want to let them down. You know? It's like this weird thing. It's like when you're grateful for that. And that was my experience. I was overwhelmed, and I was extremely humbled that I could work in recovery because it was such a gift to me. Like the pillars in my life, these giants that showed up for me. And I was just humbled to be on the playing field. And so I treated my job with the utmost reverence, right? Like I believe like we're stewards and we get to show what it's like. And I really didn't want to betray that trust, and it's paid dividends for sure.
There are people who are watching what you're doing and dealing with you, and then they talk to other people and they talk to other people, and pretty soon, even though you had a crappy background, people soon forget about that. Yeah. And the same would hold true with your jobs that you do around the country.
Yeah.
And here,
It's
I'd hire you but I don't have a place to be fixed.
Well, thank you. It's true, and I believe that is because of recovery. As cliche as it sounds, I never thought that. When you hear people talk about it, it's like, what do you mean? But no, I'm grateful for those experiences, the trials, because they made me the man I am today. And like all of it, the family stuff, the all of it. And it's I still struggle with people, and I try to be of service. I say yes to things like this because I know after I leave here today, I'll feel better. Like it's this oxytocin that gets released when you donate free of your time and energy without expectations. And it's like, and they had that figured out in the 30s. Service keeps you simple.
Yeah, they did.
which is great. Now we're actually putting science behind that.
And to tell you honestly, when I called Tyson, he didn't want to do this.
Yeah.
It's because, and to show you how much you've grown, when Matt and I were interviewing you 6 years ago when you were running the Pivot program, it's like, no, don't talk to me. I don't want to do this. And now you speak wonderfully.
Well, thank you.
About recovery.
Yeah, it's weird. You come into your own and come out of your shell a little bit, but it's been. I could go on and on. I love to talk about recovery. I love to talk about the why of recovery. I love the hard questions when people. I'm like, yeah, let's sit down. I'll do that every day of my life because it means a lot to me. It's like that fire for something that changed my life, and I'd love to pass that on. And
you are passing it along well. One more free plug. What's the name of your company?
CC Contractors. So
you can just Google that.
Yeah, cccontractors.net is our. No, cleancontractors.net. I just got a new website, but it's Clean Contractors.
Clean Contractors, a trustworthy firm that does good work.
Yeah. So it's been fun. And
thank you.
I appreciate you. And when you hired on, I remember when you came on, and I was starstruck, and so I was honored that you asked me. I'm like, Randall Carla, like my whole youth, it was, and it just goes to show, right, that. Yeah. It doesn't discriminate on who this thing touches,
We're out of time. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Randall.
You speak very well. Nicole, it's good to see you. Did he inspire you?
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to use your tree analogy.
Yeah. That is a good one, isn't it?
I stole that from somebody, but it stuck to me, too.
I will be still out.
Yeah, go for it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for watching or listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals.